thank you all and welcome to HR Speak Live, Season 5, Episode 5. We have embarked on a journey of not only HR Speak, it is about HR Next. And in that, it's also about understanding how the dynamics in the world of HR will emerge. And so, without further ado, let me introduce to you our guest for this evening. He's Satadru Chakraborty. Satadru is an HR leader with extensive experience in developing and executing HR strategy for building high-performance organization across geographies. He has been trusted partner to key leaders of best-in-class high-tech global companies. He's passionate about driving business priorities and leading large-scale transformational changes by enabling it through simple and effective HR strategy. So I genuinely have high regards for the word simple in the dynamic and complex world that we are thriving in. And of course, along with that, his forte lies in strategic HR business partnering with a global portfolio. He's an executive coach. He's also into change management, organization design, integrated talent management, performance management, talent assessment, succession management, HR consulting, corporate governance, and employee engagement. So, sir, a very warm welcome from the HR fraternity who's here and NHRD Kolkata Chapter. And along with that, I would request you to give us a little glimpse of the world that you have come from, a little bit of introduction and peek into how your journey has been.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Shweta, for such a warm and accepting introduction. I'm really honored. Thank you, NHRDN Kolkata Chapter, for inviting Mr. Abhijit Basu has been instrumental in getting things going. We have been talking for quite some time. Thank you, sir. Thank you for getting this going. I'm really privileged today. So, yeah, Shweta, so long story short, I'll not, journey has been pretty much like a lot of small town people of, people and corporate people who are currently in the industry from small town of Dhanbad. So my journey started, I was born in Kolkata, I was brought up in Dhanbad, Jharkhand, because my dad was with the Central Fuel Research Institute. He is a national award-winning scientist under CSIR. So I was brought up in Dhanbad. My mom was a teacher there. Then grew up into getting different schooling experience in Dhanbad itself, and then grew and did my graduation from Amity, Noida. Moved into doing post-graduation from Haldia Institute of Technology, probably first few batches of MBA there. And then started working primarily in Kolkata itself for some 7-8 months, and then I quickly moved into Delhi back again for different opportunity, and that's how I started growing my career. My first major stint that I started doing was in Jubilant Life Sciences. If you can just click on the slide, Jubilant Life Sciences, which is fundamentally the organization. If you write the Bhartiya Group. You typically know it for food works. Domino's is the known brand. So I was part of the factory in one of the highways. If you go from Delhi to Nainital, you'll see this factory on the left hand side. So I was there for 3.5 years. So my what you call in total parlance of initial HR experience has been in factories. And long story short, there also I started doing something, but got into doing something else, because in factory you cannot avoid a lot of these things where you get pulled into. So it is not that very driven HR experience. You get pulled into conversations, negotiations, bickerings happening, so you cannot avoid it. So that was a very good experience. I got married in 2009. I wanted to shift to Bangalore, but then I was in Gajraula, that place where Jubilant Life Sciences was called Gajraula. So I slowly started shifting towards Mysore, the same organization. The API unit, I'd worked for another unit with Jubilant Life Sciences in Mysore. During that time, I got an opportunity with Schneider Electric to lead their talent acquisition. And that talent acquisition journey was fundamentally for the global supply chain vertical, because I was coming with a background of manufacturing. So they hired me for global supply chain. But slowly moved into business partnering role, and then started doing business partnering. So when I left Schneider, I was handling global HR for one of the business lines based out of India. For multiple locations, India, Southeast Asia, and Boston. Brazil was a small location. So multiple locations managing from HR time and again. So that's how I was working, and then one of the in person went to Philips and then pulled me for creating what you see today as Philips. Erstwhile Philips Lighting is now known as Signify. Signify is the name of the company. Philips Lighting is one of the brands under it. So it is a Google alphabet story. So Philips Lighting, we sell the products in the market. So when I joined this in 2017, I was tasked to bring this entire center up, innovation center up. From it was 100 odd people to now 700, 800 plus people over the period of pandemic. And that's how it grew. I draw a lot of my energy and courage that I have been working with my maternal side of my family, being into freedom fighters. My dad was, of course, director and mountaineer at heart, so you can understand the kind of stories I would have grown up to. And these are few things that I fundamentally believe from my lens, if I look at it. Yeah, that's more about me. I have 2 kids and based out of Bangalore. Thank you, Shweta, for bringing that up. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you so much for that interesting insight into your life and the way your journey has been. That means this is an example of how the life in fulfillment moves forward with contribution to work, with contribution to people, and having a fulfilled personal life with children, with family, traveling across different places in the country. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. So the topic for today is workforce ecosystem. So I would request the participants to use the chat box, and I would request our coordinator to open up the chat box for some time. And I would request the participants to give us an understanding what, according to you, is workforce ecosystem. So this is a quick 2 minutes interaction we would want to start this session with. We have a flavor to every session, the HR Speak that we have. And here the flavor is we start with an interactive question. So use the chat box and put in your definition of what is workforce ecosystem.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for bringing that, Shweta. I think my request would be if people can interact via chat box over here. Sorry, too much of chat bot in mind. Chat box over here. It will be helpful for me also to understand where are we, and let's keep it interactive. And whatever comes out, let's try and see if we can sum it up in a way and add a little bit of seasoning on top of it and come out with a better definition or understanding of workforce. So in this process, I would also want to learn. So your inputs are extremely necessary, and I would appreciate if you share.
So we've got a lot of participants who are a part of all the HR Speak. I see a lot of common names. I would request all of you to put in your comments in the chat box. It's been opened for all of us. So what, according to you, is workforce ecosystem? And as we get into the space of understanding what is workforce ecosystem, let me also inform you or tell you about what a workforce ecosystem could mean according to Winston Churchill. He says to improve is to change, and to be perfect is to have changed often. And that probably is one of the dimensions of workforce ecosystem. Yeah. Yes, so we've got some wonderful responses. Reaching common strategic rational goals with people, says Rajiv Sen. Yeah. Indrajit says workforce ecosystem is the overall culture combined with EVP. Dr. Indranil Muchutti says human capital structure focused on value creation for an organization, more like a team which complements one another. Yeah, great. I think, yeah, I can already start seeing some inputs coming there. Thank you. Thanks for the starter. I think that was really helpful. I think that gives an understanding how do we want to go along with. So what we'll try to do is I want to spend some 40 minutes next, just to share my understanding from my lens, with my experience, what I could understand of workforce ecosystem and then I also try to delve a little deeper on different aspects of workforce ecosystem. I'll also a little bit talk about what's the industry doing
in practices in different organizations, maybe a little around what we are doing very nascently, what we are trying to do. During that time, it will be extremely beautiful if you could share some of the experience that you guys have been doing. So for me to understand, if you can share some best practices there. Again, this is, at least you guys wrote some things over there. A few days back, I was having a chai pe charcha kind of a conversation with my managers in office. And just one thing led to other. Just apparently, I asked, one of them, what is your workforce today? Typically, most of the managers came back with the answer, that's a very good question. So that is the kind of response you get, and rightly so. Why? Because they are sometimes, I feel, they are often squeezed between two realities. And today we are going to throw some light on those two realities in a broken down manner. One of the reality is that their workforce is increasingly depending on external workers. And I'll talk at length on external workers, what I mean. The other reality is that their management practices and systems and processes are designed for internal employees. So if you happen to see the ecosystem that they are dealing with, and whenever you ask about workforce, they get into this conversation of, okay, where do we start? Where do we end? I have a different understanding, but what I see is different. So their struggle is to reconcile these two realities. And in an ongoing challenge with significant implications on strategy, on, if I could say, organizational culture, workforce management practices, everything is changing as per that, and their confusion is valid. So what we have seen as an HR fraternity, I think it's mostly HR fraternity here, and mostly veterans who would have worked here. You have seen workforce definition per se is getting expanded day by day, right? So, and how is it getting expanded? We'll come throw a little light on that. The nature of work was changing, and it was already changing for last 1 decade. Thanks to the pandemic, it got fueled and pushed, catalyzed by the pandemic. It started changing drastically overnight, and in parts driven by automation. Organizations start breaking up their work up into projects that can be performed by people, that can be now performed by even machines to an extent, that can be performed by additional employees who were not part of the entire workforce definition of parlance, so-called, all this while. So when you have the full-time employees, when you have your contractual employees, when you have your professional service providers, when you have your gig workers, when you have your chatbots, AI, and all these automation tools that is helping you to drive your purpose in the organization, you create what is so-called a super team. So super team is nothing but people and intelligent machines working together to solve problems and gain insight and values into that. And that's the new AI's continuum in the integrated process of work. So workforce planning moves into integrated workforce planning. That means workforce management per se now is becoming more integrated. Why it is so? I gave some of the examples. We'll touch on the characteristics of this super team in some time. And fundamentally, if you look at workforce environment ecosystem is shifting as we speak, and it's shifting very, very fast. So that has been the parlance. So as I said, the overall things being changing. There has been multiple research that has been done in this area, and then one of the very famous white papers recently available on public domain, you can give it a read, is on the MIT Sloan Management Review report that has come out with Deloitte, and the numbers are astounding. And numbers are astounding means I would say 56 to 60% of the workforce currently has expanded. If you would talk and see the technology world per se, the product organizations, the service organizations, the organizations which are probably a new age in that balance of conversation we can use, they think the technology is going to further fuel. When I say technology, is all kind of robots, chatbots, intelligent automation, everything. Another 40% believes that their entire peer group is expanding day by day. When I say peer group, it is expanding to the developers community. It is moving to the third-party providers. It is moving to the service professional service providers. They work closely. Somewhere it is co-hosted, somewhere you call it co-located, but they work together as an organization. And they are part and parcel of thicks and thins. They're together and they work closely. Things to parallelly think about is the HR work or policy system processes is also changing to make them a part of the extended workforce is something that we will kind of, think in next 15-20 minutes we're going to spend time. This is where I would also pull in your brains how to come out with some of these things. If you're doing already, I will be more than happy to connect on that. This ecosystem, now fundamentally we understood what is workforce ecosystem. So you can put in your comments there in case you think differently or have some points. I'll come back to that. I'm not able to see the chat window right now, but I'll come back to that point later. What is the driver of this ecosystem? So let's take a step back. So now we talked about super teams. Now we talked about how additional external forces can join hands, including machines, to help you drive the value and the change that you want to see in the organization. So what are the drivers in this ecosystem? So the nature of work is changing. The statement is 30,000 feet. What does it mean is the mechanistic process-driven view of work, which was there, primarily focused on, let's say, optimizing job performance, has largely, and it might be true for 70, 80%, I'm not saying 100%, it's still gone that change, has largely given way to team-based and project-based view of work. And that is very true, at least the organization I represent, Signify. The focus is extremely high from speed, innovation, and relationships. From coming out from a Royal Phillips kind of a bureaucratic, long-driven, big elephant to big giant to really jump at the tune, spinning out of that and coming out as a new age. We call it 130 years old startup. Signify has to work very fast to time to market, NPDL, innovations. So the speed and all this thing. So our nature of work has fundamentally shifted to more speed, innovations, and relationships that we create. A relationship, I'll come back what we mean by that. These changes are compelling. Some leaders had to make some new decisions to orchestrate their entire workforce in this manner. And I've seen that happening on the ground. People are grappling with that reality. Workers' preferences are shifting. And as an HR, and I know all of you might have experiences, and thanks to the pandemic, it has added to that experience. Many of our people, many of the employees who joined us recently, and if you see your crowd, your employee base today, again, 60-70% of the organization, the workers across the generations are prioritizing purpose, flexibility, personalized experiences over job stability and security. I think you would agree with me. So they're fundamentally looking for purpose, flexibility, personalized experiences over job stability and security. That means when the workers you're catering to is shifting, automatically.
So a lot of psychological safety is being catered to.
So a lot of psychology, and they're also recognizing the fact that across generation, it's not alone. You can say the next generation, Gen Z, Gen Y, who are coming, who are thinking this way. Even the millennials on the board started thinking in a similar fashion. They recognize the fact that cross-generational change, the expectations for their careers, individuals are starting to, I had experience where I had exit interviews where people are talking about I want to start my business, and he's just 2 years in the organization, joining from a college. He did a couple of years of experience, did some development around apps, and he wanted to start up his own organization. So that is the kind of crowd we are dealing with. Individuals are starting to experiment with new changes and stages in life with different career structures. So, and also, if you see work style per se, lifestyle per se, upgrading skills per se, working beyond the age of 65, all these things are happening as this. So I have a very bad throat, so might be a little bit of.
So let me just come in here. You said that we are now in the process of emerging as super teams with AI, with machine learning, with people coming in, and at the same time, gig workers contributing in full-time or part-time to the current workforce that we have, which are full-time employees of an organization. Now, having said that, any recent experience that you've had where such a phenomena came into being and how it contributed to the overall journey and success of the organization?
Yeah, so workers' preferences, as you said rightly, Shweta, I was just trying to delve that point, and my experiences doing interviews are fundamentally changed phenomenally in just 10 to 12 months. I wouldn't have to go much beyond that. Even last year, we were facing this challenge of decline numbers going extremely high across industry, right? People taking offers, not joining us. And that has been the trend across the industry. Of course, there's been a correction. Thank you for the market that overall happened. But yes, these kind of experiences have happened. I had an experience as I was mentioning. We invest a lot of effort and energy into our campus program. So that campus program has gone through multiple changes in last 3 years, and we are trying to be competent in the market. Um, with the tag of Signify as a brand new brand. If you can talk, Philips, everyone knows, but Signify no one does. So we have to create that brand in the industry, in the colleges also. I'm seeing a big shift in their way of communicating with organizations. That is one part of it. And what are they communicating, as I said? So their prioritization is very simple. They're going to work as long as the technology they're working on is interesting. The moment that loses sheen, they lose sheen with the organization. Very fundamental understanding at the below level. I have seen people leaving the organization for 2, 3 primary reasons. One of them being flexibility, because we are a product company. At times, we had to push people to come to office for lab test benches, test setups. So flexibility being one of them. They are also looking at overall how the organization is valuing them from early days. So that is, they look out from the day one. As an organization, are they getting at the job they want to do? If they are not, they're ready to take up some other assignment somewhere else. Constant comparison with the most of the organizations across. And exit interviews have changed. Exit interviews conversations have gone into, I don't have a counter offer. I don't have a reason for them to stay back, because they're setting up their own companies. They want to do startup. They want to open up a company. On the small technology, for example, Flutter. Flutter is a technology which most people use in mobile application tech world would know it. They want to open up because they know Flutter. They now think they own the entire thing. And this is not for them, because the Web 3.0 definition is itself, if you are the owner of the data, you can own anything right now. So they are the new generations who will be working like this. So how are we managing that? We are trying to get them as a part of mainstream projects from the day one. That's how the shift we are trying to do in Signify. It is nothing called the dummy project. From the day one, the one thing from over the experience, what I have learned is you can engage people from multiple frills, but you have to, the best engagement comes if the work they are doing is end-to-end. So as early they are doing end-to-end job, and they know the vision of their work is coming out with a clear picture, and they have the visibility, they are most engaged. That's how we are trying to stitch it. The other thing that we are trying to do, with many service organizations have phenomenally done well, is create academies and pockets of capabilities and competencies across the organization. Starting early, how to bring them on board on cloud technology as quickly as possible, mobile technology as quickly as possible, embedded as quickly as possible. So get them going from the day one in the respective zone. So the homework that needs to be done is you have to be very clear on what kind of projects you're going to offer them. And this is kind of example I'm just giving just from campus story. The same story lies with the lateral hires, the entire executive hires that's happening. They have completely different kind of expectations. So yes, to answer you shortly, Sweata, that kind of gives a picture of what we're trying to do. So shall I move forward there, Shweta? Or you want to add something on that? Sorry, I can't hear you. I think you're on mute.
Yes, I've unmuted myself.
Yeah.
Going on to the next part, which means in organizations, most of the listeners here are the Gen Z population.
Okay.
And secondly, these are also people who are wanting to know what should they do in their domain as HR specialists, as learning and development partners to the organization. So what is your suggestion there?
So, okay. So you mean to say as HR function, or it is as an employee?
As a HR person.
As a HR person. So that's what. So with this workforce that you are dealing with is changing. So I think the fundamental thing that needs to be done is the investments that you're doing in your workforce needs to change. What kind of investments? When I say the investments around your full-time employees, investments currently are focused on full-time employees, which needs to change drastically to multiple other workforces that is joining your organization. So, for example, I'll just give a small example of 1 or 2 processes. Maybe it will be giving you a better idea. Say, suppose workforce planning per se. First of all, workforce definition we just now defined, it is a little more larger than just FTEs. And so workforce planning, if you look at, it was always based on predictable hiring for jobs. We used to give, we call it annual operating plan, AOP. So it was always a predictable hiring for jobs with stable skills and requirements, traditional recruitment sources, limited to full-time and part-time positions only. If you look at what's workforce going to be, it will be more broad definition of workforce, including human and digital workforces working together. All talent models for all work requirements across all talent sources will change. So if you look at workforce planning and if you want to try to attach, so this is one of the processes, that's how it's going to change. If you see talent acquisition per se, uh, your overall work with other function to coordinate talent acquisition and get access will increase. What I mean is you have to start using chatbots. So that means your inroads to IT automation has to be extremely high. Your processes and SLAs internally needs to be recreated and redone. I'll give you a small example. Say suppose a manager wants to hire a person. In the middle of the night, he decides 12 o'clock tomorrow onwards, there's a position that coming, and I have to hire a person in my team. He or she wants to use a tool, a bot developed internally, to create a position on Workday or People Software, whatever tools you're using. So what does he do? He goes to the system, he says hello, and then the interaction starts, and then you say, I want to raise a position, that one, what kind of positions, what kind of job codes he has, those things are aligned. And end to end, he stitches it. Next day morning, the position is created. It is already gone for approval for his managers or whatever the line of chain of command is, and comes back to the person as an open rec on the system. So now the talent, so most of the organizations which are fundamentally much faster and ahead, and I will take few of the fast moving IT giants way ahead and leaps ahead in this. Most of the product companies are still going through that cycle of developing it. So what we are doing currently is we are trying to identify such processes. We are trying to identify such processes not only in talent acquisition, but mostly in employee experience perspective. So one of the example is this, what I give you. Similarly, performance management is another big area where I think HR can do a fantastic job by creating few of these changes. Same manager wants to promote a person. How do you give the best employee experience through system? What is the next level? The bot should be able to suggest you the grades, the compensation ratios, the grades, everything online in the middle of the night, so that the person gets promotion letter next morning. At the end of the day, it's an experience for the employee. So integrated approach for evaluation, internal and external workforce is also going to change. So I think a lot of these things of workforce planning is there, talent acquisition, performance management, all the different areas, learning and development have taken leaps and bounds of change in last few years, and you'll see more changes. So HR interaction with cross community internally and externally is going to change. So all the teams that you probably relied on just giving you an updated data, system for you to work on, here probably you have to roll your sleeves up and get those changes done and get involved a little more. That means your idea of the value chain, how the process works, has to be extremely clear. Your idea of what tools we are using, who is supporting those value chains, has to be extremely clear. You have to know what the internal stakeholders are going to closely work with you.
Which means it's very important to understand the business model.
Exactly. Inside.
How are the stakeholders contributing to the overall revenue generation, top line, bottom line? Right. And accordingly, as the HR professional or L&D professional or the operations or the acquisition that we are playing a role in the organization, we contribute as super teams, or if some of us here are gig workers, or if some of us here are developing those AI-based applications, which are going to further simplify the process of maybe the onboarding process in an organization, or maybe do the feedback collation in terms of the 3 months exit interviews, which are happening in some of the organization for the drastic percentages that are getting churned out. Yeah. So considering these facts, it is 4:30, and since we have a very large population of almost 52 people who have joined this talk show with you, and I would like to open up the forum now for questions which are relevant to each of your domain of work. And by that I mean that in your workspace, what is it that will apply in terms of workforce ecosystem? Because this is a HR next topic. It is not something that is happening as a business as usual. It is something which is about transformational HR in organization. In the transaction level, the way we are operating, hiring, life cycle management, moving into the learning phase, then the exit phase of an organization employee, that is something definitely which is there as a business as usual. Now, if we have to move that business as usual to the transformational stage of creating teams along with gig workers, along with machine, along with apps, along with existing teams, how do you build that super team, and how is this last 1 hour applicable for your role is the question that I'm asking you. And specific to that, if there is anything that you would want to know, please put that in the group. The chat box is enabled. You can put your questions or your observation here. We've got the first question which has come in, and it is asking you, Satadru, how organization should create a transformational culture with automation enabled HR processes in place. And believe me, Dr. Indranil, this is exactly what me and Satadru were talking last evening. And this is the discussion that we are having, is that HR ecosystem or the work ecosystem is also about people and the culture and the transformations that happen. So thank you for that question. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you for that question, Dr. Indranil. Really appreciate for bringing that up. So as I said, so the entire technology is transforming, the requirements are transforming, shifting. We spoke about that, right? So one thing what I have seen is we are in a world where technology is essential to enabling workforce ecosystem overall, and is going to continue to do that. And it has hastened up the entire process also. Even if you see over the last 3 years, more than 30% of Fortune 500 companies, if you really see, they have already taken up online platforms for online platforms on organization where they're talking of different compliance model being online. So it has gone to that level. Sorry. So for one thing, what I have experienced, my journey is any transformation needs evangelists. What I mean by that is evangelist who fundamentally believes that this is needed. Every organization will have people, both early adapters and laggers. I would prefer the early adapters to be my partner to drive any change of this scale and range. The second big thing is technology involvement and how deep the technology is going to affect, be closely working with the HR in an organization also is extremely top-down. So you have to have a top-down, very clear understanding of the organization whether they want to get digitized is first thing. Second being what I just mentioned around laggers and early adapters to drive that change. For me, what I have done is I have broken down my HR processes into multiple subparts, as I said. And we are not trying to target everything and anything. I'm trying to say very fundamental one or two which can give the maximum advantage of employee experience and build them to give a good experience. One of them being the joining formalities. Can it be a seamless joining formalities in an organization which moves from a paper pushing, Excel-based, person-driven to a more ticket-based, reach your seat and you get everything kind of on a playbook? So that is small changes. This manager promotion piece, which every organization is talking of, enabling managers, empowering them to be taking the baton on your own hand for promotions, everything. But are the equipments, are the ecosystem eligible and helping them to do that? So I'm just taking small such instances and processes where I can get the best employee experience. So let's not try to win the battle overnight. Small steps with the work processes can be extremely helpful.
That's great. So moving on to the next question. While working in hybrid mode, collaboration becomes a challenge, and technology may be a great solution. Can you kindly share your experience in this domain? And she is Dr. Soni Agarwal. Okay.
So yeah, technology is added. Collaboration has been an extremely big challenge when we were grappling with the COVID. I completely second that thought there. See, there are certain characteristics of your organization, and only you will understand those characteristics once you are in the part of it. Those characteristics are nothing but how does your managers behave? How do you think the culture is going to be? If you say I'm going to talk to 10 different people in the organization every morning and say hello to them and check on their well-being, will the organization be supportive? Or you'll say hello, you'll say chat with someone and say, oh, you want to share a coffee with someone. And so culturally, every organization is different, right? One thing is, what we had done is Signify as an organization. I'll give you our example. Very soon during Compare, we realized that we needed to better understand and manage the workforce overall. When you look at during COVID time, we all woke up to March 2020, realizing we cannot show up to offices from as we could last week, but how do we get these larger team into context? So we are a B2C company at parts, we are B2B at parts. B2C because we are consumer durables at the lighting side of it, IoT side we are B2B. So we started looking at who are these extended families, the channel organization, trade teams, deep sales teams, extended teams, professional service providers. What we did was we started reaching out to each one of them through our channel HRs. And now these channel HRs are nothing but commercial HR business partners, technology HR business partners through the managers, and reach out to them and started to make them part of the overall conversation. Few of them leading that conversation. Say suppose East Zone leads a conversation of Monday morning COVID situation in that East Zone. I'm talking the peak of COVID. Any channel partner wanted any help, and these are all senior channel partners, long-term associated with Philips. Similarly, West is doing something, North is doing something, South is doing something. And there were business leaders, there were HR business partners, there are HR SPOCs, there are sales representative and external channel partners partnering in the Monday morning call. That happened for one complete year. Second big thing that we did was our employees, we started extending collaboration to their family members. So all the people who lost jobs in their family members, like someone's uncle, aunt, kids, we started reaching out to them and asked them whether they want a job inside, they want extended stretch assignments, they want to do something with some other organizations. At least have a cup of coffee in the morning, share a conversation and discuss your state of mind. These are two big things that we did, catering to our external world and catering to our internal employees. Both is a classic example of extended collaboration. But yeah, the journey begins again with the leadership support, and you cannot drive that without proper support and structure there. That's the value the organization drives.
And also, such norms are formed at the top level, and then it is driven down to the levels below. Yeah. And as it is said, in the words of Peter Drucker, that culture eats strategy for breakfast. So while workforce ecosystem is a strategic transformational change that we are looking at, it is also important to note that if the culture is not supporting the workforce ecosystem, the pillars might just get a little disturbed. Yes. So the both have to go hand in hand. Now, moving on to the next question from Rajiv Sen. Impatience is what is noticed in today's generation of workforce. True, Rajiv, I echo the same. How this impacts the ecosystem and what strategies can be adopted in terms of keeping workforce engaged? That's the question.
Yeah. So yeah, you're correct. Absolutely, Rajiv. We call it impatience. They call it need of the hours. That's how they are. So they call themselves as technology natives, and we are immigrants. Even my son does that. So yeah, we might want to create fantastic storyline based on this, but honestly, sometimes the traditional way works better with small tweaks. So small tweak which I just mentioned. Our campus program, we tweaked in a way where we used to go to colleges without much of clarity on projects and deliverables. We started getting that from the day one. Other bit is, sorry. The other thing is, can we have a long-term interaction and collaboration with this group before hiring, so that fundamentally they know what are they supposed to expect in an organization if they're taking up, even sitting for the PPO. Okay. So even if they're sitting for the presentation for Signify going to the campus, they should know what kind of work they're getting into. They should not, most of the people joins the organization, I've seen in my previous batches also, they join after working for 1 week, they're saying, hey, I want to work in data. I do not want to work in embedded, but he or she is an electronics background. But he or she wants to work in data. And my friends are working in Amazon and Facebook and these companies, and hence I also want to work over here. So those kind of conversations. So what we are trying to do is, one side, we are trying to mend our processes a little by little on technology. We have also extended our chatbot facility, and we have told our new campus people to be the first onboarders of this chatbot, give us feedbacks, and again, on different experiences they're going through. So they're going through a 6-month straight learning program as we are speaking right now. One of the modules in that learning program is updation on chatbot. So whatever they're going to talk to the chatbot on everyday basis is going to be used as FAQs, and the learnings the AI is going to happen. We have an in-house chatbot, by the way. So we want to do that, get that learning. So this new age generation people are the best people who can give you the next generation chatbot, because they're going to ask questions sometimes as lame as a structural thing that you can understand, sometimes extremely creative and innovative questions, which goes, and as we say, there's nothing called a stupid question. So everything is helpful for us. And
and with Chat GPT knocking the door and giving us the understanding of it knows it all, life is going to get even more simpler. And so hence, the word simple is even more important in our lives henceforth. So what is the next question? Yes, it's from Upama. And it says, with the changing workforce and to create value in the organization during this transition, how the role of HR professionals should evolve. So the transformational changes that should happen or should be considered when the HR professional in different domains are taking it forward. So maybe we had touched upon it a while back, maybe a reiteration in terms of the important factors towards it.
So any transformation starts to begin with knowing the challenges and risks of this entire transformation, first of all. I mean, until you know that, you won't be able to pinpoint. So if you see the workforce changing, workforce ecosystem changing creates multiple barriers. These barriers are fundamentally very core to the organization. One of the fundamental barriers is overall culture. Are we diluting the culture by adding too many people in the block? Okay. Second biggest challenge is the legal and the regulatory issues worldwide. If you see, when you see an onboarding of a third party, a lot of these programs are around that. Also, the entire quality, brand, intellectual property for product organization, extremely vulnerable zone and things to think about. So how is HR, start thinking on how is HR connecting to these points? Pay equity and parity. How do you differentiate and similarize between a FT full-time employee and a third party? When you talk about diversity, inclusion, equity is one of the areas we talk about. So if you talk about equity, how do you make an equitable payout for your worker who is gig and wants to take up bite size of your time and explanation and give a return in investment for 6 months, or say suppose a year for a project base, and go off the circuit, and they have to be also part of the ecosystem. So when you start thinking on these lines, you start answering those questions. If you look at quality IP, how do you think HR can help this part of it? Is there a way that we can add value to the overall system by getting them sorry, this is popping up. Getting them on board a little early in their journey, keep them away from so what we are doing is our product company. So I'll give our examples right now. We have entire generation who comes as an intern. We do not want to give them every access to them from the day one. Similarly, our third-party workers, our professional service providers, they don't have access to the product portfolios in and out that they should have. So what we are trying to do is, people who are co-hosted with us gets to sign an NDA and works with us closely. But again, that is a very small time, ad hoc answer to the overall IP. In a long term, we are also in the process of developing how do we want to develop the ecosystem. But we can do wonders on the areas of pay equity. We can do wonders by introducing what I believe in, what do you call that, makeshift insurance policies, small time or medium grade insurance policies for interns, small time half 50% insurance policies for contract employees. Small or large of it can be use of better pay equity and different policies for these interns joining us, this third party people working with us. Can they have partly what we FTEs are enjoying to begin with? Those things can be, we call them micro insurance in parlance of the conversation. This micro insurance is nothing but a different kind of model with this third party who's working with us as a TPA. and create a model for this intern. So during COVID, everyone wanted insurance, right? So we cannot say no to anyone. So we gave insurance to these interns for a 1-year internship, but that was on a different model. So like this, small and large things, we are already trying and making ad hoc changes as we speak. A lot of other areas, as I was trying to put my fingers upon when we started this conversation, was around workforce planning, talent acquisition, performance management. Every area, I think, as an HR, we have to fundamentally understand our integrated workforce is a large portfolio, and it is no more just the FTs. You have to include equities. You have to include your discretion of workers and functions to coordinate talent, coordinate overall performance management, and bring in the compensation and rewards in the right sense so that everyone is included and not feel dejected about it. So I think,
it's about a lot of inclusion at different levels. And how do we include the so-called vendors who have transmitted their role as partners and now become internal to the organization? So there was a time when we used to onboard through the PRPO system, different organizations who would work alongside, and we would call them vendors. And now we have come to the time when they do get onboarded, but we have stopped calling them vendors. They are our partners. And now, even after the role of them playing a partner, how do we make them feel integral to the organization so that they contribute with the ethos of the organization, with the culture of the organization, and they walk the talk of with the values of the organization as well. So, of course, it's a hand-in-hand transformation of values, ethos, culture, along with the strategic transformation that is the workforce ecosystem. Moving on to Oindrula's question, how can we utilize artificial intelligence to help us in keeping a track of the behavioral patterns between employees and managers so as to enable more focused people, culture, environment within the organization? Okay. This is a culture question, but with a strategic twist to it.
Yeah. So overall, what we have started, as I said, I've broken down my HR processes into multiple subparts. As a HR manager, you go back and start doing that. It helps a lot. So you break down your HRS processes, your exit processes, your hiring processes, and try to see as many number of small and large value chains that you break that HR process. One of that process is a little the interactions being, I think from a HR standpoint, your role starts the moment you identify these processes. You will realize one fact that there are sub processes to an extent where you and me never thought that we could get and create a lot of difference, and that helped us a lot. One of the biggest difference that we created by breaking this was, and we are trying to get our inner chatbot team to help get that going, is how is the interactions of these employees with different tools within the organization at different points in time. If you have a chatbot which identifies and goes through this and can tell you at the right time or sensitize the overall process at the right time, stating that this person is a little vulnerable. We did that exercise with employee well-being, our major focus during the pandemic time, and people using the chatbot, talking to people and taking help of our mental health well-being team who is externally located. How many requests have gone? So we don't monitor the names, we don't monitor the number of people going, but we monitor the footfall in that tool and in that area. So those data were not looked earlier as a data per se. Now, those data are now very, very important for us. That has given us a leeway to now get that, and that's a use case. Now we have the use case. Now what we can do is we can take that and now start getting into driving what we are trying to drive, like a learning academy within the organization. So how many learning related questions that you find on the tool that comes from all the employees? The chatbot is calculating. It is creating a path that is closely monitored by our learning team internally, and they are giving ideas what could be the specific programs that you can take from our learning platform, which is by digitized platform that we have. So these are small suggestional changes. Nothing major. We have not broken any path breaking achievement yet, but we are in the process of learning as well. But these tools, the small value streams will help you identify where you need to focus on. And again, as an HR, we need to declutter a lot of our actions. Then we want to pick up everything to make us successful. did I miss on the strategic part of it? What was the second part of the question, Shweta? Was there any second part of the question? Sorry, you're on mute.
She went on to ask about how will it enable a more focused people culture environment within the organization.
Okay. So if you understood the overall workforce ecosystem that we spoke about, I think when you start working through the different value streams of HR, you are strategically directionally moving to an organization which much more evolved and learning, right? So you are giving that leeway. So one of the fundamental big things that you can actually affect right now, the first thing that you can actually do is work on the organizational design piece of it. Begin there. So if your workforce is today internal, external, and technology based, shift is happening from teams to more towards networks. So you can start talking about span and layers. You can talk about decision rights. You can talk about reporting structures. All these areas could be your point of strategic move for the next year HR agenda or the goals that you take up. I think from a business standpoint, it is very, very imperative to give the right pyramid to them. So I think with this changes, you can actually work on an overall employee experience. So that's what we have been doing.
Okay. So I have a question, and the questions that's coming to my mind is more in terms of where is the need getting created to engage external partners or AI, and to what level? When or how that need gets created? So I'm looking at it from the need analysis point of view, that we want AI or chatbot, and to this extent we want, and then we explore to get in a partner to contribute to the need that we want. So how do we know what is the need, and accordingly how do we then explore for offerings that are coming from experts?
Correct. So see, when you talk about integrated workforce, when we are talking of the ecosystem overall, we are talking of the complementary nature of strengthening ecosystem. So when I say complementary nature, in the sense, for example, when you talk about essential workforce ecosystem, if you look at complementing ideas, would be within an entity or within the ecosystem, there are interdependencies to accomplish. The success and failure completely depends on external and internal actors of that. Currently, as an organization, technology organization, what are the fundamental external and internal factors that works for us is, one is our employee population and base. How is it changing over the period of time? How is the attrition level? How is the organization's target organizations they're coming from, they're losing to? Which are the organizations who are partnering closely with us, with our new generation IP? Which are the organizations which are taking up our services work? Which are the organizations are working with our IP related product work? Which are the organizations which will be closely working with us for a project deployment and co-hosted by the IT team? All this kind, if you put together different activities that are happening together, you'll find the reasons why you need this interdependencies to be officially called out. You know, these interdependencies are not because someone has written on a piece of paper that you're an employee and you're not as a part of it. It's an ecosystem that is working for a common vision. That ecosystem will help you to reach that common vision only if that ecosystem is well oiled in all aspects, including the chatbot. Chatbot could be equally intelligent as your employees. If you feed in garbage, you will feed out garbage. So, so your ecosystem your success will depend on your ecosystem, and we fundamentally are not agreeing to the fact it has been there for all this while. It is not that it has not been there, but do we always give the same kind of importance to that? No, but now it's no more. It's an elephant in the room. You have to have that conversation. So that is the need that I see. That is the requirement I see to mix this and get an integrated workforce management.
Thank you so much for that clarity. Makes a lot of sense now. So getting it from the expert and from the stories that he has shared in terms of his experience, we pause the questions now, and I don't see there is any further question on the chat box. We are all interested to know one more thing, Satadru. What inspires you or who inspires you? And a little bit more on that, please.
If you have, I had shared that with you. I think I draw in a lot of energy from people around me, all kind of people, and that has been my lifelong journey. I don't. I think my okay. Let me go take a step back. If I self motivation that I have driven myself comes from my grandparents, as I mentioned. They were freedom fighters, and I've seen and heard their stories lifelong. So that is one part of it, which is at a very philosophical level, where I feel greatly associated with the fact that you're tasked to do something in life. That drives me. And when at the most saddest of hours, these are the stories that pulls me back into life. That is one. The second big thing is I draw in, as I said, I draw in a lot of energy with people around me. I kind of thrive on celebrating others' success, and that is fundamentally what drives me. I get a great amount of motivation if I could give a person internal career opportunity or an external career opportunity. It gives me immense pleasure. So these are two driving factors, and that is the motivation level that I work with. Even within the organization, it is up to you how much extra mile you want to go and do that extra call in the morning and say hello to a person in COVID time across the board. So entire team did that. It's very, very important. Your organization shares the similar values, supports and rewards those similar values. So I have been lucky to work with such organizations which fundamentally believed in those values of going that extra mile, building on people's energy, creating an ecosystem where everyone can thrive. So till now I've been fortunate. So that's about me. Music is my passion. I'm what I can say. I'm a very amateurish percussionist. I keep on doing my own things. So I predominantly play djembe and hang drum. Those are the few things I draw back upon in my free time. That's how I survive.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. And thank you so much for that, Satadru. Good to know that we have a leader within us, and he does not only explore the world of transformational change in HR. He has his own likings, and he makes time for it, because it is said that the more we spend time on enriching our heart set and soul set, the better we emerge as leaders and people who contribute totally to the society at large. So with that, a big thank you to you, Satadru, bringing to us the understanding of what work ecosystem is all about, and how each of us in our own domains can bring in those changes and create transformations in our organization. I see some of you putting on your camera, and I think this is a nice time when all of us can put our cameras on and we can take a group photograph along with Satadru, if that's okay. We can spend the last 1 minute in that. Can we all switch on our cameras to take a group fee, if I may call it, with Satadru? Okay, just giving it another 30 seconds. Abhishek, I can see that your Mimi is there, but it'll be nice if you can also switch on your camera. And so it goes for our NHRD Kolkata chapter coordinator, Sweata. Please switch on your camera. Great. Abhishek still can't find you. Obijitda, what about you? Please switch on your camera. Thank you so much, everyone. Okay, no problem, Abhishek. But next time you should be able to switch on your camera. Okay, so with that, I would request the chapter coordinator to take a picture of us. This will be a group picture together for episode 5 of season 5 of HR Speak with Satadru, who has taken us to the transformational level of HR, which is work ecosystem. And with that, I would also request people who are from the management colleges in this session Look forward to the Career Club membership at the management colleges. You should become a part of the NHRD Kolkata chapter and become a part of the Career Club so that you have a wonderful future in the domain of HR across industries and sectors. All the best wishes to you. I just hope the NHRD Kolkata chapter has taken a group picture for us. I've taken it from my lens. I've taken that. Okay, so it's 5:01, 1 hour of nourishment in terms of learning, in terms of understanding what is transformational HR. We've just started the topic of transformational HR with work ecosystem. There will be more. Watch out the space to learn and engage as the HR community. Thank you so much. Have a very good evening. A very warm and heartiest thanks to Satadru. Thank you for your time and contribution to the society at large.
Thank you very much for having me, Shweta. It was a privilege was all mine. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you everyone for joining in on Saturday afternoon. We'll see you around.